Counselor, 10 years you spent in the Justice Department. You were a U.S. attorney. Now you're a private practice defense lawyer. I think you're well suited to answer this question. Is 7 to 9 years excessive for Roger Stone?
I think it is. I think that if you look at the other types of cases that have come into the Justice Department, basically this is a case about making false statements and encouraging others to do the same. That 7 to 9 years is well outside the heartland of these kinds of cases. And so what the prosecutors have done is what many prosecutors do. They got their conviction and now they're seeking a very high sentence. But if you kind of look at other cases that have been brought and the way that the guidelines were calculated, 7 to 9 years is excessive, and my guess is his sentence will be significantly less than that.
I know that you know this federal judge. How do you think that she'll respond, if at all, to all of the discussion, the controversy, the media coverage in the last couple of days?
Right. Judge Jackson's very experienced. She's been on the bench almost a decade. She was a federal prosecutor herself. She was a very well-respected criminal defense lawyer at the law firm of Trout Gutierrez. And so my sense is she's going to put all of that aside and look at the facts, look at the law, look at the other cases, look at where others have been sentenced and find an appropriate sentence that's significantly less than what the government had requested.
Is there an analogous case? Is there something that you're thinking of, a high-profile corruption case that this reminds you of, where you can say so-and-so got X years?
Sure. I think Scooter Libby case comes to mind. Mr. Libby was convicted of making false statements. It had a political nature to the case itself. He received 30 months. Now his sentence was commuted, and so he never actually served a sentence, but it was 30 months. General Cartwright, he was the former vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was also convicted of lying to the FBI about a leak with regard to the media. His guideline range was 0 to 6 months. He was actually pardoned by President Obama before his sentence came. You also had General Petraeus. He had actually pled to a misdemeanor of mishandling classified information, but he was also accused of not being truthful to the FBI. He received a misdemeanor and no jail time. And so the range on these is probably somewhere between 1 and 2 years. I think that in Mr. Stone's case, the fact that the government really uses to try to jack up the sentence is a 8-point bump in the guidelines for what he allegedly did was threaten another witness of physical harm. Now that witness has come forward and said that he didn't view it as physical harm. I think he said something in a text about that. And so that is a factual thing that the court will have to review and make a judgment on. But again, I think those cases are more in line with what you'll see as opposed to 7 or 9 years.
Well, how are you and how did you learn and what happened?
Sorry to hold you up so long. Just a few minutes ago, I had a very gracious call from the President of the United States. He told me that he had decided to use his extraordinary powers of clemency to commute my sentence, what he called a full commutation of my sentence. We obviously have not seen the papers yet. But under the terms of a commutation, I can now pursue the 2 appeals that I have filed of my conviction. One is an appeal of my conviction based on constitutional grounds and other things that happened in the trial. The other one is an appeal of the decision by Judge Jackson not to grant a new trial based on blatant, egregious, undisputable juror misconduct on the part of the jury forewoman. As some of you may know, the President's decision came literally in the nick of time because the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals rejected our emergency motion to overturn a decision by Judge Jackson, which in my opinion ignored not only the current Department of Justice and U.S. Bureau of Prisons guidelines regarding COVID-19, disregarded the precedent in her own district regarding every other person who is similarly situated, as well as every other circuit in the United States. And since the initial emergency motion that Judge Jackson denied has been filed, there are now at least 20 confirmed cases of COVID-19 at the prison in Georgia to which I had been designated. Confident that I can win on appeal. I believe I will expose an enormous amount of corruption in my trial on appeal, but I have to live long enough to get to the appeal. And at 67 years old, with a history of respiratory problems and other underlying health issues, the danger was very real.